Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Bob.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Lemke. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Patrice for asking me. It's always a pleasure for me to participate in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's a little more meaningful when we have some new people or comparatively new people, because whether you new people realize this or not, and I'm sure you don't because we didn't. Fact of life. Next to us old-timers, you're the second most important people in the room today. Don't ever forget it.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
But really, without you new people, this thing would probably end up with all us old-timers sitting around here telling these same old stories. We probably all get drunk. I'm what the book says is a real alcoholic. In fact, I'm one of them bar drinking drunks. Are there any bar drinkers here today? Thank God. I mean, I don't know where the rest of you did your thing, but I'll tell you what, if you didn't get some bar time in, you missed a lot of fun. I loved everything about those joints. I love everything that goes on in there. I like the smell in there. I like them stools you can spin around on. I like the mirrors they got in those places. My friend Tom and I could go out here tomorrow on Wilshire Boulevard, open up a joint without a mirror. Fact of life, we'd go broke in 2 weeks. 3 things you have to have in order to operate a bar successfully. 1, you got to have the booze. 2nd, you got to have a license to sell it. And 3rd, you got to have a mirror. Honestly, or you will not make it in the bar business. That mirror, incidentally, is not there for social drinkers. Bars cannot survive on social drinkers. They depend on people who drink in volume. And you and I are the volume drinkers of this world. Social drinkers do weird stuff in bars. You bar drinkers know what I'm talking about. They come in, have a couple drinky poos, and then they start saying weird off the wall kind of crap like, I'm getting dizzy, I'm going home. Going home? People like you and I, we sit there all day, and we have to have something to entertain ourselves, and it's usually our own image, thus the mirror. We sit there all day staring in the mirror, you know, figuring things out. I like them jukeboxes they got in those joints. You know, the ones that play Born to Lose all day. I even got to like the Men's John, and when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, we used to have a guy around here by the name of Norm Alpe, who in my opinion is the greatest speaker Alcoholics Anonymous ever had, ever will have. And he's a bar drinking drunk, and the first time I heard him, he was up at one of these podiums like this, and he talked fast. I mean, he's the only guy I know can give a 1-hour talk in 32 minutes. He'd shoot it out there really fast, and you had to listen close to catch it. And he's up there this night and going on and on. All of a sudden, I'm new. All of a sudden, he said something weird, at least I thought it was. He said he got to be a bathroom slider in the Men's John, and one of the bananas fell out of my ear. And I thought, what's this clown talking about? You know, I thought I'd done it all by the time I got here, like you. And here's this guy talking about something completely foreign. I don't know what he's talking about. And he went on to explain that bathroom sliders in the Men's John, I think in the ladies too, where they have them pay toilets, good, keen, smart alcoholics slide under the door to avoid paying. Save that money for drinking whiskey. I thought, by God, why didn't I think of that? Bet you there's a couple of newcomers thinking it right now. Then he went on to explain whenever he got done doing what he was doing in there, he'd slide back out. Never realizing, of course, that once you're in there, you can take a handle and walk out. And anybody that thinks like that is a friend of mine. And so I'm eternally grateful to the Norm Alpes and the Eddie Reagans and the Chuck Chamberlains that said things from podiums like this to drunks like me, or I wouldn't be here. Are there any Texans in the room today? No Texans? Not here. Thank God. I knew that. They move around a lot, you know. The reason I ask that is when you talk in Texas, if in the first 5 minutes you don't tell them your sobriety date, they automatically assume you don't have one. And so in deference to our Texas friend, my sobriety date is the 13th of January, 1964, which means I'm coming up on 48 years sober. Don't laugh, clap. My family still isn't clapping. But for you new people, I did not come here primarily to get 48 years sober. I came here primarily to get a lot of people off my back. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but you know them damn bill collectors and that woman and those kids and that damn dog and the IRS. If they'd all get off of my back, everything would have been all right. And that's the way it was. And it continued for a long time in my early sobriety. They were all after me for money. And I told my sponsor, why is it they're always after me for money? He says, Bob, get something straight. They don't want your money, they want their money back. It was really quite a shattering thing for me, you know. They want their money back. Oh. Well, I guess it's important to tell you a little bit about what it used to be like, what happened was like now. I believe, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I think back, you know, I've thought this thing out, and I think about a lot of things, you know, when I have nothing else to do. And it's usually about me, you know. We're kind of selfish. Anyway, I was born in a little town in Wisconsin, and I don't know about you, but little towns have two problems. Everybody knows everybody's business, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. In my case, it seemed bad all the time. And the second strike I had against me when my dad was assistant chief of police in that town. And he was about 6'4", weighed 240 pounds, wore a uniform, carried a gun, scared a little bit Jesus out of you. And for the first 15 years of my life, I did everything that that turkey told me to do, just out of fear, because I knew deep down inside, if he ever hit me, he'd kill me. And he's a big moose and a tough cop, and I'm scared to death of him. I mean, little things. If he told me to run to the store, I literally ran to the store. I didn't slow down when I got out of sight neither, and I'd run all the way back. If he told me to carry out the trash, I carried out everything that even looked like trash. If he told me to rake the leaves, I even raked the neighbor's leaves. And in Wisconsin, where we have a lot of snow, and he taught me very early in life, if 5 flakes of snow fell on our sidewalk, it's my job to take it off of there. And I did that religiously out of fear until this magical thing that happens to all human beings, everybody here, everybody out there, about the age of 15, something happens to human beings. Medical science to this day haven't got to figure it out. But you and I know what happened. I don't know how it happened to you, but I have a concept. I think it came floating on a cloud or something in my room at night, went kaboom, and no bells or whistles went off, but the next day I was certain something was different. I can remember like it was yesterday. Got up, got dressed, went downstairs, had breakfast, headed off to school. No big deal, right? Came home from school at noon. It was snowing. I know my job, right? But this thing had happened, like a change of attitude or something. Like, what will the neighbors say? A genius out there shoveling snow. You know? And all of a sudden, I had this idea. I just won't do it no more. I don't care what he does. I just won't do it no more. Took the snow shovel, set it up against the house, went in, sat down in the kitchen table, started eating my lunch. Then I heard the squad car pull up in front. And then I heard the car door slam. Then I heard the shovel out there on the sidewalk, and I said, it's about time he does something around here. Have you ever had the feeling like you got to do it all? That's the way I felt. And he came in the house, took off that uniform cap and that big heavy Mackinaw and that 45, laid it on the dining room table like he did every day, came in the kitchen, sat down at the kitchen table right across from me, and then he threw me a curve. He didn't say a word. And if you've just been endowed with the smarts, that'll drive you nuts. Yeah, I've been waiting for him to say something. I've been saving it up for 15 years, you know. And today's the day I'm going to lay it on him. And he didn't say a word. I didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, I realized I have to go back to school. Got up, headed out towards the front door, and I had to go around the kitchen table past him. When I got to him, I stopped, looked him right in the eye, reached down inside, got one of them pearls of wisdom I'd just been endowed with, right? Looked him right in the eye, said the smartest thing I could think of. I said, is the snow heavy today? Big mistake. He didn't say a word again. He just kind of turned in a chair like this and came all the way from right field, direct hit. And I took off in the air, up against the dining room windows. And when I came to, I developed another bad attitude. I said to myself, and only to myself, nobody can hit me like that and get away with it. I'll get even with him, by God, if it kills me. But also, maybe 10 seconds before he hit me, and the only time he ever hit me in my life, and I know to this day I had that one coming. He was the sun, moon, and stars in my life, and that's what I'm going to be when I get big and all that kind of stuff. But in the quiet of my room at night, I used to plan his demise. Now, I understand it's not proper thinking for a 15-year-old to be planning his father's demise, but that's the way it really was. And some of these things I'm about to tell you, I believe have all, including the hitting incident, some of these things I'm about to tell you, I believe have all had a direct effect on my attitude towards people, places, and things. And by the time I got to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, my attitude towards people, places, and things was really messed up. About a year after that hitting incident, another big deal happened. Another cold winter day in Wisconsin, snow piled up as high as those windows. And 3 of my buddies come home from school about 4 o'clock, walking down the street, get to the corner, go down to my house. And there, across the street, in a big snowbank, is my dad, passed out dead drunk, in full uniform. And these 3 supposed friends of mine started teasing me about my drunk dad, the drunk cop. And we went to Fifth City right there, and I won. But I'll never forget the feelings and emotions I had that day. I realized then and there that he had disgraced that uniform he wore, disgraced that badge he wore, and lost the faith and trust of that community that he had pledged his life to protect and to serve. Big deal. About a year after that big deal, another big deal happened. At the age of 47, he died of chronic alcoholism. Didn't say that on his death certificate. He's a big shot in that town. It said heart disease. But those of us who knew him and loved him knew that the booze had gotten the best of him. And I found out another fact of life, that doctors lie on death certificates for certain people in certain towns. And they're still doing it today. Fact of life. About a year after that big deal, another big deal happened in my life. I was going with this gal. When I say we were going together, we started out in kindergarten together. Same kindergarten, same grade school, same high school, same Sunday school, same church. Right out of high school, we got married. It was a beautiful event, crossed white shotguns, everything. She never did like me to say that. I'd clean it up once in a while and say it happens in the best regulated families, right? And right after we got married, like all women, she started to demand things like furniture to sit on and curtains on the windows and all that stuff. And I don't have any money. So I go down and see my dad's buddy, the chief of police, told the chief, she wants all this stuff, and I don't have any money. He said, go up to the sheriff's department tomorrow. I think they need help. Walked in the sheriff's department the next morning, they put a gold badge on me. And I got to be a drunk cop, just like my dad. And time doesn't permit me to tell you what can happen to a drunk cop, except stir up some old resentments, and God knows you probably don't need any more, especially when it comes to cops. bunch of cop haters here today. One over there, two in the back there, one over there, right down in front here. Cop haters. Yeah. And I understand it. But I don't want any newcomers to think I got a bunch of warrants here and you start heading for the doors, you know. They took that badge away from me a long time ago, and next to the night she died, it was probably the second worst night of my life. Nothing I could, you know, because I tell you, I love that job. If I could do it today, I'd be out there riding the black and white. But it all came down one night, a bunch of cops and our wives going to have a party. And I don't think there's anything different, incidentally, between a cops party and a civilian party, except maybe at the cops party, the booze is all free. And that's where drunks like me really shine. I don't know about any of you, but I just love free booze parties. And I'm not the kind of guy at a free booze party sitting over here in the corner sipping on a drink with a little pinky sticking out. I'm back there in the kitchen where the supply is, with both hands, getting all I can get while the getting's good, in case they run out, you know. And I don't know how long we've been there, but she sidled up next to me in the kitchen and says, "We're leaving." I said, "What are you talking about, woman? We just got here." She looked at me with them cold Al-Anon eyes. "Sorry, honey." And said, we're leaving. And I don't know to this day how she got the keys. Because I'm like you, you know. It's my car, I drive. And she had the keys and we left. And all the way home, she's starting to badmouth me about my drinking. This whole thing is in the book. It talks about this in the book. It says, you and I who are real alcoholics go through life with blinders on us, like they put on horses, and we don't see anything that way, and we don't see anything that way. It's our way or no way. We're very selfish individuals. And she's yakking away and telling me all the god-awful things I don't want to hear, like the truth. And us alkies, I think, are born with a switch behind our right ear. And when they start laying that kind of stuff on us, we shut the switch off. And it goes, chew, right over the top. Don't hear it. Don't listen. And we got home, and she wouldn't shut up. She was telling me things like, your drinking is causing no end of problems in our life. I said, no, what are you talking about? She says, first of all, you're affecting our social life. I said, yeah, how's that? She said, we just had to leave that party back there for one reason and one reason only. I said, yeah, what's that? She said, because of your dirty, filthy mouth. I'm sure nobody here believes that. And then she said, not only that, it's affecting every other aspect of our life. I said, no, what are you talking about? She said, it's affecting our home life, our family life, our kids' lives, our financial life, our sex life, everything about us is being affected by my drinking. Now I'm certain she flipped her lid or something. And we got in the house and she wouldn't shut up. And I reached for the only thing I know would shut her up, a 38. I said, woman, I've heard all I'm ever going to hear from you about my drinking. I'll blow your damn brains out. And she took off like a deer out the front door of that house, 6 blocks down the street to the only place she knew she could get help, right? The sheriff's office that I work at. And I'd have got her too if she'd just slowed down. And you'd have a different speaker here today too. I'd probably be up there today walking the yard and talking the talk and walking the walk. So I'm eternally to something. Call it anything you want to. I call it God. Thank God I didn't pull that trigger that night. And they came out of that blackout standing in the sheriff's office in the squad room with all the guys coming off the late shift. Here I come busting in there with a 38 man, going to kill somebody. And all the guys are standing around the squad room and they're all looking at me kind of funny. You know how your family, friends, loved ones, fellow workers look at you when you're drunker than a skunk? They kind of look down your nose at you like you're some kind of second-class citizen or something. And incidentally, if any of you don't know what I'm talking about right this second, you do not belong here. Those people near and dear to us look at us really funny when we're drunker than a skunk. And they were all standing there looking at me. And then the boss, the elected sheriff of the county, comes in the squad room. And he and I are like this, thick. I thought he looked at those guys coming off the late shift, then he looked at me. And I thought he was coming over to shake hands with me or congratulate me or something, you know. And he just went over and looked at me and he says, Bob, hand it over. Held out his hand, says, hand it over. The badge and the gun. And they took away that badge, that gun, and that uniform, and I had to go out there and face that world bare naked. That's too much for a normal person, much less a drunk like me. So at the age of 31, I did the most adult, mature thing I could think of. I ran away from home. If there's any runners here today, I want to talk to you outside after the meeting. Because I tell you, wherever I go in this country or any other country, these rooms are full of runners. You know that? Running to something, running from something. And everyone who is doing that, including me, we all forgot one thing, and we almost forgot the whole most important thing. No matter where you're running to or running from, you forgot it, I forgot it. I had to bring me along, and you had to bring you along. And you is the problem, and me is the problem. And you can't make this thing alone, and I can't make this thing alone. But together we can make it. And that's the miracle that it talks about in our book. One drunk talking to another, and it works. Works to the tune of over 3 million sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's good enough for me, man. And I consider myself a very fortunate member of this fellowship because over the years I've had the privilege, and I mean a privilege, to probably eyeball 50% of them, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, some of the finest people I've ever met in my life all turned out to be sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's several of you here today, and you all know who I'm talking about. And it's a pleasure for me to sit amongst you, no better than, no less than, just dead even. That's what this is all about. Newcomers, we don't care what you did out there. We've done it in spades. So don't sit there and keep condemning yourself. You've done it. We've taken some of the load off of you. We've done it all before you. There is nothing new around here. We get here, we're all dead even. Dead even. We're all here for the same purpose, to find a new way to live, because our way was not working. And that's what we found here, a new way to live. And it's the greatest thing that ever happened to a drunk like me. And so every day, I'm eternally grateful just to be one of us. One of the greatest societies in the United States. Secret. We don't go around blabbing everybody and telling everybody on our street corner, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. My mother really screwed it up one time. She was living in a home for the elderly. She'd been hit by a car, but she was up in ambulatory. And she got the job of delivering the mail to all the patients there. She loved it. She's a former nurse. And then I wrote her one day and told her I got elected to the board of directors at the club in Glendale. And she went and told everybody in that hospital that I was just elected president of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had to write her a long letter, explain that all, and tell her, Mom, don't do that anymore. Well, that's the way it was. I did some bad things with my mother that I'm not proud of yet. But I was 2 months sober, and I went back home and sat with that woman for 2 days and emptied a lot of stuff. And she said, like my former sponsor says, if you keep doing what you're doing, I love you more than you did before. So it was an even match. I guess it's important I tell you about my last drunk, because I've been here long enough to say this with authority. If you can't remember your last drunk, you probably haven't had it yet. But I don't know about any of you, but I never want to forget the day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous in utter desperation. And if you people are new, who are relatively new, I hope you're as desperate about this thing as you've been about anything in your life, because I believe the more desperate you are about this thing, the better shot you've got at making this. My last drunk was no big deal. I didn't sit around and plan it for 3 weeks or something, you know. It just happened. It was a Friday night, 27th of December, 1963. Just finished eating dinner. made the big announcement to that woman and those kids. Told them I'm going out and have a couple beers with the guys. I'll be back in 2 hours. And she started that yak, yak, yak. You know what I'm talking about? And I said, listen, woman, I just put in 40 for a bunch of ingrates around here. And I'm going out and commiserate with my friends. Now I'll be back in 2 hours. Now knock it off. And that was 27th of December, 1963 at about 7 in the evening. And I got back on the 13th of January, 1964. Can't tell you to this day where I was. I know on the 27th of December, 1963 at about 7:30, I went to my favorite watering hole, a place called the Prelude on Lancashire Boulevard in North Hollywood, which really isn't a heck of a lot to shoot for. It was one of them padded sewers I started to frequent. You know what kind I'm talking about? They didn't even have a front door, just curtains hanging there. But I really went there to meet these lifelong drinking buddies of mine who I just met 2 weeks ago, right? And sure enough, they were all there. And we started doing the things real drunks do in bars. They're doing it right now, all over this town. Standing around there talking in millions and spending in dimes, trying to impress people we don't know with money we don't have. If you're a smart drunk like me, you're trying to put the make on some dolly down there at the end of the bar and impress the heck out of them. And you know what? In this group of 6 guys I went to meet, fact of life, there wasn't one common laborer in the whole bunch. We were all brain surgeons and jet pilots and astronauts and doctors and lawyers and devout liars. But in this group of 6 guys there was a new guy. His name was Pete. And Pete was one of those intellectual giants you meet in bars. You bar drinkers again know who I'm talking about. That's that guy or gal who sits down there at the end of the bar and has the answers to every living subject in the world. And they drive people like you and I nuts. And that was Pete. I mean, if you had marital problems, he had the answers. If you had legal problems, he had the answers. If you had medical problems, he had the answers. If you had engineering problems, he had the answers. I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I thought, how can the guy know so much about so many things? And he really impressed me. And he went with that drunk we were going to go on. And we all ended up in these abandoned cars, one of which was mine. You laugh. You know how your car gets to be an abandoned car? It's kind of a work of art. The tires are usually flat, the battery's dead, it's out of gas, and it's usually 6 months behind in payments. Then legally, it becomes an abandoned car. I never knew that. It also got to be our living room, our kitchen, our bedroom, and our bathroom. Got a little salty in there. And one of those days, I can't remember which one, we all came to and Pete didn't. And he had swallowed his tongue that night in an alcoholic convulsion. He was deader than doornail. And I got fighting mad at everything and everybody. And God, if there is a God. Because my great intellect and better judgment took over, which incidentally got each and every one of you here. Our great intellect and better judgment takes over. And my great intellect and better judgment told me at that time, if there's a God, why would he let a good guy like Pete go, who knows everything there is to know about everything, and let me stay? And I can't tell you all the events that went on because I was passing in and passing out all the time. But when Pete died, it really scared me. And I think maybe it was the next morning, in the night or something, I heard this music. It was like the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra was in the car with us. At least that's the way it seemed to me. I know the battery's dead. Where did it come from? And then I thought, this is what it must be like just before you check out. And then I got scared. And I thought cops aren't supposed to get scared. But I got scared. And for the first time in my adult life, I got down on my knees in that sewer, cried out to a God I was absolutely certain did not exist. And if he did exist, he didn't want anything to do with a drunk like me. But I said the most honest, sincere prayer I've ever uttered in my life. I said, God, if there be a God, help me. The alcoholic prayer, help me. And wouldn't you know, through a series of events, I believe there are miracles. Chamberlain used to say, look up miracle in the dictionary. It will explain to you. And those who are too lazy to look it up, I'll tell you ahead of time. It says miracle, unexplained happenings. So here we are, a whole room full of unexplained happenings. Isn't it incredible? Here we all are, unexplained happening, and we're sitting here today in Los Angeles, California, sober. Shouldn't be. We're drunks. We're supposed to be drunk right this minute. It's Sunday morning. Shit, get a little start going. You get a couple down, all of a sudden you feel like a new man, right? And all of a sudden the new man wants a drink. You understand? And so I got home and I told her about this incident. And she said, isn't that funny? I said, it was not funny. She said, I mean, what happened to me? I said, what happened to you? She said, I'm sitting at my desk at Warner Brothers, and you've been gone a long time. And I started crying at my desk. And wouldn't you know, don't tell me there's no miracles. One of the vice presidents of Warner Brothers at the time come walking through the secretary pool that morning, that second. Saw this girl crying at her desk, tapped her on the shoulder, said, you better do that in here. Took her in his office. And for the first time in her career at the studio, she let it all hang out. She's married to this drunk, and he's the father of her children. He's been gone a long time, and she saved up some money. She's going to take the kids and go. And he said, why don't you have them try Alcoholics Anonymous? And she said, how do you know? And he said, because I are one. And wouldn't you know, it was the first time in 37 years at the studios, he broke his anonymity that morning to help one sick drunk me. And I had the pleasure many times to think, he's gone now, and I can say his name, Matt Gilligan. Thank God. And I got to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she went along to make damn sure I got there. And I went home from my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with sore ribs all night long. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? God rest her soul. You know, because on the 23rd of November, 2001, she was diagnosed with melanoma cancer. And on the 23rd of December, 30 days later, God came and took her from me. 3 weeks short of 54 years of marriage. And my life changed, I'll tell you. My life changed. And I suppose I knew it, but I never said it. But I say it many times now to people maybe can learn that from me. Fact of life, that women, only women, can make a house a home. Men can't do that. And so I lived in a house for 7 years. And it's the pits. And then I'm talking at the old-timers meeting in Anaheim. And this guy come over and he says, I want you to meet somebody. I said, is it a girl? And sure enough, he introduced Marilyn to me. And I'm a quick study. I know a good thing when I see it. And I got her number right away. And I started calling Marilyn. And then things progressed. And on the 14th of June, 2009, Marilyn and I got married. Isn't that wonderful? And we got a good thing going, I'll tell you. She's real active in Al-Anon, and I'm very active in Alcoholics Anonymous, and we got things going. And I'm eternally grateful. My kids love her kids like me, and what more do you want? So we were at a big family reunion, like family Christmas party last night, and it was full of houses and dogs. I mean, full of kids and dogs. I mean, I meant to say a house full of kids and dogs. And we had a wonderful time. And so I guess it's important Did I tell you about what happened as a result of that, my last drunk, and going to that meeting? The next day I went back because Matt had told Marion about Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I went to my first AA meeting, like I said, and then the next day I went back again. But I went back to that clubhouse in Glendale. It was up above a liquor store and a laundry, upstairs. And I walked in the clubhouse, and like over here, and two guys are sitting over there at a round table playing cribbage. And I walk in the door, and one of them, they stopped playing cribbage. And one of them poked the other one like this, and he said, "We better do something with that one, or he's going to start jackknifing around the room here, you know." I mean, I wasn't nervous, just quick, you know. And they applied the only therapy those two guys knew. They gave me a bucket of paint and a paintbrush, figuring that I could paint faster than anybody else in the place. And I painted that damn clubhouse, and I can't tell you to this day how long I painted. I don't know if it was 5 days, 50 days, I don't know. But I'll never forget the day I finished. It was a bright Saturday morning. Put away the buckets and the brushes and cleaned everything up just perfect, because we're perfectionists too, you know. And then I found out the truth, that one of them cribbage players had been a painter all his life. And the old thinker came back that fast. Why me, God? Why wasn't he up there painting? And I'll fix their clocks. I'll get drunk at every damn one of these phonies. And head out the back door of that clubhouse. It was on the second story. Headed out the back door of that clubhouse, boundly determined to quit Alcoholics Anonymous, get drunk at every damn one of you. And then God, as I understand, God had to intervene. Because I reached for the push bar on the back door of that clubhouse. You know them kind they have push like that? I reached for the push bar on the door, and the door opened up ahead of me. And there was this clown standing on a little landing there. He has a smile from ear to ear, and he says, "Hi." And I said, "Shove it." He says, "Why you say that to me? I don't even know you." I said, "Shove it anyhow." He said, "Come here, I want to talk to you." Brought me back in the meeting hall, set me down in Henroy chairs, not these nice plastic ones, padded ones, them cold metal ones. And I told him about them gray-haired goats, and they made me paint that club, and I'm going to get drunk at every damn one of them. And he ended up being my sponsor. He said, "If I'm going to be your sponsor, 3 things are going to happen to you, man. 1, you're going to go to meetings. 2, you're going to study our book. And 3, for the first time in your adult life, you're going to start following instructions." I thought, how the heck does he know that? And they say at that time there were 700 meetings a week in the greater Los Angeles area. And today there's 3,200 a week. And we made them all. I mean, it was meetings every night. And newcomers, it's going to happen to you because it's happened to every one of us, so don't feel bad about it. You're going to say to your wife, your husband, your buddy, your girlfriend, meetings every night. Tonight I'm not going. And that night he came by early, put me in the car and started down the freeway. I said, "Where are we going tonight?" He says, "He's crusty." He says, "We're going to the hole in the ground." And I thought, oh my God, now they're going to bury me. And for those of you who don't know where the hole in the ground is or was, it was underneath the Ebell Club in Huntington Park, California. It was started by a guy by the name of Tex Adams, who'd been sober since Lincoln had the measles. Thank God for people like Tex who started places like that for drunks like me. And he told me I had to study that book. He would not let up. He'd get me in the corner with this book, and he'd start pounding on the cover, saying weird stuff to me, like, "Between page 1 and 164 of this book is how drunks like him and millions of others before him had found a way of not to die from chronic alcoholism. And if you don't want to do it, then get the hell away from me." I thought, how can you talk to a sick alcoholic like that? Don't you understand we're sensitive? He literally saved my life. He motivated me to do the one thing I would never have done on my own volition. I cracked the cover of the book and found me in there. We started down the steps into the Ebell Club. And I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Joe, I got to ask you something." And I told you, he's crusty. He turned around and says, "Yeah, what do you want now?" And I quietly says, "How long do I have to go to these damn meetings?" He got fighting mad that fast. Took his index finger and shoved me into the corner like that so they wouldn't hear it inside. When he got me in a corner where I couldn't get out, he started to get violent. Yeah, he took his index finger and started hitting me in the chest like this, and he screamed. He started saying, "You idiot!" I didn't like that. And he said, "You have to go to meetings until you want to go to meetings. Then you don't have to go to meetings anymore." Didn't make much sense then, but it sure does now. But that night, sitting in that meeting, they're smart, you know, them old-timers. They set you here in the front row so you don't nod off, right? And I'm ticked off at him, you know. And I'm not going to listen to anything they got to say here. But all of a sudden, I had to do something to pass the time. So I started counting light bulbs. I had a blast in here. And then I ran out of light bulbs. And I started winking at girls. And then I ran out of girls. And I'm ready to flip out, you know, just poof, you know, go flipping around the room. And I spot this guy about 3 rows back. He's scribbling on a piece of paper. I didn't know you had to take notes here. And I watch him. All of a sudden, he takes this piece of paper he was writing on, got up, went up the aisle, over to the door, took the piece of paper, stuck it on a bulletin board, just like that one, and split. I didn't know you can do that. And I'm an ex-cop, and I'm nosy by nature. And I got to find out what's on that piece of paper. So I sneak out of my seat there and go up there and tippy-toe up there, take that piece of paper off the bulletin board, and I read it, and it made sense. And when nobody was looking, I stole it, took it along home. And on days that I was absolutely certain, I just can't make this thing. It might be all right for you, but I can't make it. Yet I didn't want to go back out there in those damn cold cars and start drinking rot-gut wine again and die like my buddy Pete. So I get it out of my billfold and read it, save my can a million times, and it's time to go. You've been a hell of an audience. It's a little poem entitled, "Which Place?" I dreamed one night I passed away and left this world behind. Started down that lonesome trail, some of my friends to find. Came to a signboard on the trail, directions it did tell, keep right to go to heaven, turn left to go to hell. I hadn't been too good on earth, just a hopeless, boozing rake. I knew there at the crossroads the path I'd have to take. So I started down the rocky path that leads to Satan's place and shook within not knowing just what I'd have to face. Old Satan met me at the gate. "What's your name, my friend?" I said, "I'm just old sober Sam that's come to a sad end." He glanced through some files. "You made a mistake, I fear. You're listed as an alcoholic. We don't want you here." I said, "I'm looking for my friends." And a smile stole over his face. "If your friends are alcoholic, they're in the other place." So I went back the other way till the crossroads I did see and turned right to heaven, as happy as could be. St. Peter smiled and said, "Come in. For you, I have a berth. You're an alcoholic. You've been through hell on earth." I saw old Dub and old Pete too, Bill C. and a friend called Bell. And brother, I was tickled because I thought they'd gone to hell. So brothers, all take warning, learn something from my trip. You've got a place in heaven if you try hard not to slip. If someone tempts you with a drink when you're not feeling well, just tell him you're going to heaven and he can go to hell. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.